welcome to Non-Perishable Goods Podcast. I think today we have a very cool show that I think will be very informative for everyone. It's on I think we're going to talk about the education system and
Yeah.
just the state of it and where we are in society. I don't know. Like you're working with the youth quite
hmm
often, you
Very,
know.
very, and I guess it's on, it's a daily thing that I'm involved with education and, obviously playing a sport, but the education piece is like the biggest piece that I try to stress to my families and my players.
Now, are you finding your boys don't want to don't want to attend higher education? Or, well, I guess in your program they have to because they're going to
They
college,
do.
right?
Yeah. So like we have a complete opposite of what maybe society is doing right now with education or the thought process of education, because our systems kind of manipulated in a sense where foreign players don't have to go the educational route. And even an American born player has to complete high school or their GED in order to become a professional, in this sport, and get paid and so on and such, because there's rules, guidelines, and
To get
different,
into the major leagues, to get into the Major League Baseball.
yeah, to be in
So,
the,
so if somebody's from China or Japan, they don't have to
they go through
go.
a whole different process, and it's like a posting process for, people that are into the Dominican, Puerto Rico, Japan, a lot of the South American countries that a lot of these players do come from. They generally come from academies, and those academies then hire specific agents or agencies to have those players posted in the international draft or free agency signings, um, to kind of forego having to go to the 2 year or 4 year system that a lot of American players do have to do. And
Mhm.
I just feel like our education system in today's world has been so dumbed down, and teachers are so, kind of a lack of respect, a lack of notoriety in what they do and what they pose. And I always look at it how I grew up and what education meant to my family,
Yeah.
and just me personally. It's been everything, and I value being in school. I value um, having to write papers, again, having a Bachelor of Science in Communication, and then, having two master's degrees, and doing all of that kind of like with my master's degrees, I was doing it dual,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
like
Oh,
that.
wow. What did you get your master's in, if you
So
don't
I
mind
have
me asking?
business communications and secondary education. And
Okay. Okay. I can see how those could go in conjunction with each
they
other.
can go hand in hand with what I wanted to do, and I, at a young age, like I said, education's everything. Because at a young age, I had a fourth grade teacher named Miss Perrine, God rest her soul. But she always thought I would be a perfect fit to be a lawyer, because I
Oh,
like to debate and always had interesting topics. So like whenever we had reading or certain like public speaking engagement things, like actually I was talking to my dad about that on the way down to SoCal last weekend, was like what 11-year-old do you know does Toastmasters with a bunch of adults,
nice.
and topics and things of that nature. And that's kind of my upbringing. Like, my dad's a USC grad, master's
Wow.
degree, mom's a Cal grad, master's
Oh,
degree
wow.
at mom.
See, that's a big point. That's why you're probably ahead of a lot of people because I know a lot of people that are first generation
Mhm,
college attendees, but
mhm.
your family has been going to
And I
college.
think,
How about before that? Like your
yeah,
dad and then your mom.
yeah, it's a mixture of the education part, but I think athletics spawned a lot of that too. My dad ran track, mom was a track person,
Mm.
so I think all my cousins played hoop and other football sports. So I think sports were obviously a driving force for these types of things,
It
but
pays for school. It
it
pays for school.
and that's kind of what I do on a daily, right? Is trying to get my athletes prepared to, kind of a mantra we have is take them for what they're taking you for. So they want you for your athleticism and your, athletic paralysis. You need to take them for the education piece, the relationship piece, the things that you can garner up and and
Connections.
muster up your new network, right? Like whether it's on the baseball field or whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in a lab, whatever it may be. I think the education part for me is just super important because for me at least it shows diligence, right? It shows a steady hand of you're committed to something, whereas and it's not knocking entrepreneurship because I am an entrepreneur, and it's not knocking corporate world either because I've been in the corporate world as well. And I just think like it gives you more of a foundation if you're really bought in and you have a really good support system when you are doing that. There's so much you can gain from it.
Yeah, like it gives you structure, behavioral, it teaches you I think constructive or critical thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it helps you with just solving problems, not necessarily what you're learning the curriculum. But I think, curriculum is definitely good if you know what you want to be
Yeah, and I just think
in
there's a lot
life.
of kids who don't, at least from my perspective, because I deal with it on a daily, right? So I do have a lot of high school athletes that don't necessarily know what they want to do.
Mhm.
And I can only go off of kind of my experiences and what I've dealt with, even with two college, kids that I have, that my two children that are in college. And it was kind of cool, like when my youngest was a junior, he really kind of knew what he wanted to do. And I was
Nice.
like, okay. And then, when he got to college and then he's declared his major, and it's like, oh, all right, like, cool. You want to do business. All right, cool. Well, just make sure that, you're obviously taking the right classes, you're obviously doing the right things, you're obviously picking the right subject lines to be a good business person or and whatnot. So, excuse me.
Yeah. How do you think your son got in or knew what he wanted to do in his junior year? Like, why do you think he knew he wanted to be a business? Was it just he was a natural? He had a passion for
At
being
first
an
it was
entrepreneur?
communications, right? So like those two can kind of go hand in hand with business communications, business administration, different things of that nature. I think it's so broad because you can do coaching, you can do athletic directing, you can do teaching at a high school, college level with these types of degrees because they're very linear with certain things. And so I think that just kind of an environment, right? Like you have a
You
dad.
pushed him? Did you push him?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's my job as a father is to push him towards what I know was really successful or what
Mhm.
made me successful in this lifetime, right? I think it's kind of cool because like maybe some back history or just kind of a situation or an example I can pose to everybody is like my dad is probably the epitome of organized. He writes everything out, like from a journal standpoint to how I'm going to get accomplish my day. If I'm, he's the kind of guy that gets three different quotes or bids before he purchases something, whether it's big or small. And when we were down in SoCal, the forecast was for rain. So I went outside because I had a couple of work calls to do. So I did them by the pool and was on a business call. And I come back into the room and he's gone. But then I go to the desk and I wish I could have took a video of it because I would have actually posted it on social because it was cute, but it was also like, damn, this is who I am. I'm kind of a byproduct of my father. And it's all these listed things of what we're gonna do for the day. It had wake up, it had, I'm going to go buy two umbrellas and a lawn chair from Dick's. It had the cost of the lawn chairs. It had the, things that we would probably keep in our emails, like after you've purchased it online and you're just going to go pick it up. Like he's got the QR codes written out. He's got
Oh,
what the
wow.
time is. We're going to go to Jimmy John's for sandwiches for the game. And,
Is he a Virgo?
he's a Pisces.
Oh, they're very particular as well.
Yeah. So I think that that's a big part of the due diligence aspect of the education system, right? And like,
How
I
to
feel like,
navigate life. Yeah.
well, I think it's just different now from when you and I were in high school. And I think we share a commonality with the fact that, you went to Laguna, I went to Florin. These are Elk Grove Unified School District schools. And the five pillars, and I remember these very well because I was very involved in my senior project and different things of that nature because my senior project, along with five other of my friends, we did a mentorship program, an African American males mentorship program that we basically grabbed seventh graders through juniors, and on our lunches, after school, before school, a lot of times for me it was before school, we mentored younger, athletes or just kids that were struggling. A lot of them had broken households, not really feeling school, truancies, different things of that nature. And so kind of like what I'm doing now for a living was already kind of
In you.
seated
Mhm.
at a young age. So it's crazy how that works. But the education system overall, like my overall like educational history and the things that I went through, all led
Mhm.
to that because I had really great teachers that empowered you to be a
Yeah.
thinker, to
And
be a creative worker, to be, a
yeah.
self-starter, and to be a community contributor. And I think that those, like some of those were the pillars that are in Elk Grove Unified that I felt like a lot of our teachers, or a lot of my teachers at least, really did a great job of
They
adhering.
cared about you. Yeah, and that's the problem. I mean, depending on just on that, like depending what school district you're in will determine your success in life. Because
Mhm.
there's other school districts here. You would hear that they weren't good or they weren't, good education, and people would try to have send their kids to other school districts, by using different addresses or
That's
however.
on to this day. I mean, it's like in the sports world, it's crazy because you have kids transferring in and out all the time.
But it's those
And
opportunities. People
yeah,
need these
I think,
opportunities to get ahead.
yeah, and that's your job as a parent. That's the job of a parent, I feel like, is to not only be there for your child, but to give them the accessibility to being successful, right? And kind of paving that way for them. And whether they
Yeah.
like it or not, like this is just what we do.
Yeah, we left my parents. I now looking back on it, they did make a good decision by moving us from Hayward, California to Elk Grove, California.
Hmm.
Because they just knew that it was they like our neighborhood. We lived in South Hayward, like the Mount Eden area, and it was starting to turn, and you could tell that the community wasn't gonna be as prosperous as maybe this up and coming community that was being broadcast all over, of Elk Grove, like, oh, bring your families, good school systems and all that. So
When
it
you
it
were,
matters.
when you went to school, you were what the second graduating class of that
We
school.
had
So
all the resources, all the
yeah,
labs, all the
yeah.
books, all the.
Hmm. And
But
it's
go
crazy
ahead.
because even the elementary school that I attended, two different ones, and from a private school standpoint, you didn't have the same, I would say, accessibility to technology and different things like that I had when I got to Elk Grove Unified. And coming up through that, just like I always look at it and I try to explain it to people. It's like there's this ladder to success from the elementary to the middle school to the high school. And
Yeah.
like when I look back at it and I think about it really hard, like where I can reflect on this very, very deeply, I'm like, damn, everybody was kind of on the same page. Whether they were or not, 'cause I don't know. I wasn't in the background or in the, behind the scenes stuff, but at least the overall message of you're going to get your college education, you're going to take your SATs, you need to be a 3.5 student, you need to have these district honor rolls or presidential awards and these AP courses. I was a big AP, honors guy from the time I got to the high school, just how they pushed you.
Yeah.
Um,
But if you didn't have that knowledge, if you didn't have that information, you're gonna get left behind. Like it's almost like a cool, like a social club. Like some people know how to work the system, that will make your child
what we were
success.
talking about before we got on, right, was just college. When we were in high school, college was looked at as a power, wealth, prestige thing, right? PWP. And even in a lot of my circles or the things that I'm doing in my background of baseball and things like that, like school's very important, because one, if you want to prolong your career, you have to have good grades, right? And you have to also have the athleticism to do it, but you also have to be a good student, and that's a big
And be
factor.
competitive
Yeah,
with
but that Go ahead.
With well, real quick, with like your academics, like because I remember when I was in school, they were pushing a lot of the AP courses.
Mhm.
And if you don't know, like those will really help you stand apart from other students.
Well,
But if you
just
don't
to
know that, yeah.
yeah, just a simple fact, like, okay, here's an example. Like, I took all 4 years of Spanish at Florence,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm,
so because I passed my AP test with a 4 out of 5, like I didn't have to take um, a
in
second
college.
in college. So I already tested out of that. Math, I had AP pre-cal. So I only
It just
took
saves time
I
if
took
you
a
know the
total
system.
yeah, I took a total of 2 math classes. It's nuts, right? When you think about my college experience overall, like just to get my bachelor's was, dude, I just had to like literally pay attention in my lectures basically because I didn't have any real labs. I wasn't a science major, so I didn't have to really worry about science. And then I only had 2 total math courses, and one of them
Mhm.
I took when I was getting my master's for the business side because that was needed, and then a refresher test on the secondary education side, to pass your CBEST and get your teaching credential kind of deal. But other than that, like I accomplished all that before I was 18 or while, right at 18. So I'd had a lot of what you don't, what a lot of people struggle with in college. I didn't have that experience. I was
Mhm.
taking the courses that were leading me to,
Which is beneficial for you because it saves you money in
oh, yeah,
college.
yeah,
By getting all that out of the way,
saves
it will
time.
save you, yeah, it saves time and money.
By the time I was a sophomore, I had upper division courses, right? Like, but I was at a
Mhm.
JC, but
In
I
high
had,
school?
well, no,
Oh,
sophomore.
JC,
Oh,
JC, JC. Duh.
but I was already into my
Yeah.
acting major
Okay. I see
by
what you're
the
saying.
time I got my AA, right? And so different routes, different sources, like,
Now, real quick, now what do you think? Do you think it's a good idea for parents to have their children go to JCs first before
that's
attending a four year just to save money and get the GE out of the way? Or what do you suggest in your
the best
position?
thing about California is that your first 2 years, as long as you just fill out your FAFSA, are free. So a lot of people don't know that. And this is also coming from, my time at CRC as a coach. So I had to learn the ins and outs and all the things that require, so I don't have a recruiting violations when I'm recruiting an athlete. There are so many really good programs and pieces that can uplift a kid who may not have 4 year aspirations. And, during my tenure for 5 years, I mean, we were almost at like a 97% clip of getting our kids to a 4 year school. Like
Nice.
that was one of the things that I can give a big shout out to one of my mentors, Donnie Miko, who's the head coach there, who really embodied education first. But, I've known that man since I was 12 years old. He mentored me on the baseball diamond and in life. And then, later on in life, I'm actually able to work side by side with somebody who mentored me while I was coming up through all of this. And just seeing his overall message resonate of you're a student athlete, right? Student comes before the athlete, something I've always said in my organization and program too. So I think that, yeah, there is something to be said about going the JC route, right? To answer your question, totally. I think that more kids have to look towards that route, especially my athletes and where, COVID has hit, the transfer portal. There's different things that matter now that affect the non 1%ers that are, student athletes and so on and such. So like the JC system is phenomenal. Um,
Because
I
isn't there like a program where they track it where you basically have not a fast track, but JCs are connected to four-year universities to
yeah,
transfer
a lot of them.
easily, right?
Oh, and there's a lot of high schools that you may not know that are very connected to
Oh,
school.
really?
So
Oh,
like
nice.
schools like Christian Brothers, they have the same
Mhm.
diopsy that St. Mary's does. So they have a filtered system. Basically, it's a
Mhm.
it's a transplant system that just linearly, if you take these courses, you're automatically admitted if you have the grades and the test scores to St. Mary's in Moraga. And then
Mhm.
you have different schools like Rio Americano, where I coached for 3 seasons. And the best thing about that was is learning how their counseling department worked for all of my players. And a lot of my players that didn't play baseball or weren't going to play baseball moving forward in college, decided to go to schools like Colorado University, Boise State. So they have fast tracks to those types of, institutions.
Is that a private school?
Now, Rio's a public school, but
Awesome.
one of the better schools in San Juan Unified. Like I believe, like, and I don't know the Rockland ones and the El Dorado Hills school districts, but like I've always viewed Elk Grove as this,
Mhm.
and I can say that because I was a part of it. My siblings were a part of it. Both my children graduated from it. TJ, my youngest, had a little bit of a different educational path. Like we sent him to Capital Christian his first 2 years, where things were different. Like things were run differently. Like it was more of a college laden kind of environment. Like every book had to be bought, like it wasn't, textbooks and things weren't provided. Like all these things were a part of what his scholarship was. So
That
I didn't,
private charter school,
yeah. And
fundraising. Yeah.
so like you kind of take for granted what you were getting in an Elk Grove Unified School District school or any type of public school.
Because I'm all for the public school district if it's a good school district. Because I still think it's a quality education. There's still teachers there that care. But I do notice a lot of people are going like the homeschooling route
So I think
or
the homeschooling route is, in a sense, a lot of it's coming down to protection, like security, public health, and safety because of all the mass shootings and just the overall propaganda that some people may feel that they're getting
but
at
but
institutions.
can they go this? Do you think kids will have the opportunity to, you know, get fast tracked to certain colleges by the homeschool route, or is there disadvantages of going the homeschool route? Have you
It,
not heard
there's
anything about that?
and I guess I can say this because I've lived it with several athletes of mine, right? And um, yes and
Yeah,
no.
what do you notice? That's
Yeah,
interesting.
I think the biggest part I notice is more of the social aspect of it, not the smarts aspect of it, right? Like I still am a big believer in you know being a collaborative person, right? Being around people, being social. Like I'm a social person, so that's not going to be in my you know moral compass to just homeschool my child, right? Like it's going to be like, no, bro, you're going to go to school, you're going to learn how to make friends, you're going to learn how to
Yeah.
part of overall society in this classroom.
So have you noticed like any public speaking weaknesses or any
Social,
social
yeah,
interacting?
I think there's a lot of social awkwardness that
Oh,
does come from being
really?
be in private school to homeschool. And that's, again, it's an opinion. So I want to make sure everybody understands it because it's not factual, because it's my opinion.
Case by case.
It's
Yeah.
what my experiences have been. Um, the
And
people
then
that,
also, well, real quick, it also depends how they socialize their children if they are in
oh,
homeschool,
for sure. But
you
it
know?
comes down to family. That comes down to what they want for their child. And so my
Are they
family,
learning from an iPad or do you actually have maybe like I kind of feel like small cells or small communities of homeschooling would kind of be cool if you were on the same,
types of homeschooling. So like the homeschool
yeah.
kids that I dealt with, which was really cool, is I was actually their PE teacher. So I got paid to do baseball training kind of one-on-one or group settings. So for about 6 years, um, I want to say from 2014 to about 2019, I was deemed a vendor through different private schools and institutions, and they're all run by like one charter, right?
Mhm.
So it depends on what district you're in or what, like the San Juan charter, right? That's where majority of my kids were coming from. That would normally be in San Juan Unified School District schools, Rio, those types of schools in the Carmichael kind of area, Arden Park area. And I had a lot of those athletes that would do their PE with me. And what I did see is I saw a lot of hands-on moms that were the stay-at-home mom, but they were hands-on. And so like
Mhm.
I never experienced anybody that was just kind of like trying to buck the system per se and like try to skid by. Like everybody was really on top of their educational point. And I would say probably 100% of those kids I did have ended up going to traditional high schools. I think we only had maybe one or two within that gap or that time frame of knowing this kid's in, getting homeschooled, but they have a school that they actually attend maybe once a week. That was the cool part about that. So that was something I had never thought, because when you say homeschool, that's all you think. Oh, this
Yeah.
kid's homeschooled. I do have one athlete right now that is, his homeschool's Bradshaw Christian,
Mhm.
and he's homeschooled, but I grew up with his mom and dad. And so they came from the same educational background, and they all both have higher education backgrounds as well. Like dad's really smart, astute, got a master's degree in architecture. Mom's got a big time degree from Cal. Like, so they have these things, right, that are setting forth the right foundation, even if that kid is being homeschooled. So that particular player, because they probably socialized them correctly through sports, is not awkward. But there are some kids that are socially awkward that I did have in those types of, PE sessions, right? Like, I don't like to call them PE because we were doing baseball, but they really did struggle with one-on-one learning from somebody.
Mm.
And
Mm.
like, I could honestly see where they would struggle if they were in a natural classroom, like we all were. And so
Right.
it's a big thing in a sense, because it really is what you want in the home. Most homes in the general Sacramento area, what our median income just in South Sacramento is still below the poverty line, the average, right? So
Mm.
like, I'm just taking where I was raised and where I was born and the things that I've experienced. So you have a lot of people who are just, I don't like to say it's a built-in babysitter, but for a lot of the kids that I grew up with that had, kind of troubled homes, that's what it was. So education for them wasn't at the precipice of, when I walked through that door at my parents' house, like, it's, how was your day? What did you learn? Do you have any paperwork for me? When's your next test? When's your next project due? So these are five like legitimate questions that I'm getting probably every other day,
Mm.
from my family, my set of parents, right? And so that does make
Yeah.
a big difference in how you're going to value being
Yeah.
educated.
And
And
being raised, like that's just something I keep hearing you say over and over again. Like being supported, having a mentor, it just matters. It just matters. And it's sad that a lot of, like you're saying, the people that are under the median income, they don't have these opportunities, or they just are ignorant to it. Not saying that they're like dumb, but they just don't know what's out
and I
here
think
and the benefits. They don't know the benefits of going to school.
and we have so many deterrents now with education, right? The biggest deterrent is obviously the social media aspect of how we're doing things, right? And where the YouTubers of the world, where a lot of kids from 12 through 18 are seeing
They
kids.
want to be YouTube stars and influencers, and but they're making a lot of money doing it.
Mhm.
Some of them.
And
It's
I
kind
get
of like, oh, real quick, it's almost like the NBA or like, a sport,
it is its own
NFL or something.
now sport, right? Like,
It's
you could think of being an influencer, a content creator, a YouTuber, it's its own like
yeah.
wing
But it's
now.
only so many people can make it at that. It's kind of like the new superstar.
Well, you know what blew my mind a couple years back, when TJ decided, my youngest decided that he wanted to leave Sac State and go to Hawaii Pacific. So we went over there for his
Wait,
visit.
real quick. I think that's great because just to get out, even I think that's even education, just getting out into another environment that's totally different than your normal everyday culture life. You're going to learn a lot from that as well.
It's taken a lot of patience with that process, I would say, because the formality for him, or just the reality was, is that he was home, right? Like, he was in his hometown. It's crazy because I feel like I see him more, that he's so far away
Gone.
than he was when he was here during that time. But kind of the cool thing was, is like, we get to campus, right, to go watch the campus stuff, right, to go on the tour.
The
And as we're,
orientation.
yeah, so their campus is very unique. It used to be a mall,
Oh,
right?
wow. Really?
So there's classrooms that used to be the Gucci store. There's classrooms that used to be the Louis Vuitton store or crystal store, the Swarovski crystals and things like that.
Oh, I love the architecture already. Like
Oh,
that just seems like a
so
learning environment. Yeah.
their weight room, for just regular students was a former Hooters. So you could totally
Mm.
tell like they look like a Hooters
Or
bar and grill, and but there's weight now in it. So
shut up. That's interesting.
yeah, we go back downstairs and they show us this big lab room, right? And it's a whole e-gaming wing, e-games, whether it's
Mm,
PlayStation, Xbox, computer, Nintendo Switch, Game Boys, like they have an e-gaming team. And so like programming and things of that nature, like the technology piece, like and I'm being long-winded with it, but when I go back to my high school experience, we had what we called the BET Academy at Florin, which was a business and educational program. So a lot of kids that I remember that were in that program were kids that maybe didn't take a liking to reading, writing, and arithmetic, but they were teaching them apprenticeship type deals through technology, computer
mm,
processing, photography,
dope.
building websites at a very early age. I mean, we had dial up back then, but we have all these things. And it's so cool when I think about just what, like 6, 7, maybe 8 years prior, we were just playing Oregon Trail on them old Macs, right? And
Right.
so like you have this whole academy that's teaching you for the future. And I always give my high school and my high school experience a lot of credit because the things that those educators did for us, right, were huge. Like I have teachers that I still am in contact with. One, I know my brain works that way, but I know my schedule literally from my sophomore year all the way through my senior year. I remember
Oh,
every,
wow.
Mrs. Escobar changed my life in high school because she
Oh,
a believer in my own ways of writing and how I can articulate myself and building up my vocabulary through, you know, non-recommended, like, non-mandatory book reading, right? So she would give me a list of books to educate myself even more on the things that I needed education on. Like I
they
found,
cared about you.
"Hmm,
And I think that matters. Like, if
oh,
people show interest in
mhm."
you and believe in you, kids are going to go so much further, or just people in general are going to go so much further.
I was talking to, my best friend yesterday about it because, my godson's getting ready to go to high school, and we had a really candid conversation about, do you choose the education piece or do you choose the sports piece? And for me, it's like
Both.
he
I mean,
he
well,
choose from a Sac City Unified School
oh,
or an Elk Grove Unified School. And we were going over the pros and cons of what we know and what I know and what I have a lot of players in Sac City Unified where, they're overachievers. And that's kind of, I guess I can have a little bit of a skewed sense of education in its own right because I have a lot of athletes who have to make, because you have to maintain a 2.5 GPA to play for me. So
okay.
like that's already something there where if you don't have that, you don't play, right?
Yeah,
So I'm not dealing with a lot of kids, and we have our kids that struggle. You know that everybody knows that, like, but the majority of my kids don't, right? And it's
yeah,
just what they're putting into it is, some of them are just kind of coasters, and I mean by coasters is they're happy with all B's. Where I'm trying to get them to exponentially get better and push themselves to get straight A's and mix in some A's and B's in there because
you have
ultimately
to be competitive.
that GPA and that test score can be the difference, right?
Yeah,
There's
yes.
that my players are being recruited by. I just we had two kids commit to the same school in Walla Walla, Washington, Whitman University. This university is about 65 to 70 grand a year.
Wow.
And if they didn't have the education piece, they couldn't afford to be there.
Yeah, that scholarship, but before or getting a scholarship, if you can get it academically or, scholastically
There's
or
so
through
many
sports.
things to get money for it and people don't even know that. Like I think a lot of when we were, going to apply for schools and things like that, we didn't have. I don't think we had the same amount of level of resources at our fingertips to find funding to not have to take a student loan out or to not have to go in debt.
Yeah, we just had all the state grants like Pell grants, Cal grants, that
Still
your
have
your
that type of stuff, like the cool thing about the state system, so my mom is a 35-year, now retired from STRS, which is State Teachers Retirement Systems, right?
Where
And
did she go to school? You said it. I think I cut you
she
off
got
earlier.
at Sac State.
She
Well,
went,
she went
okay.
to Cal State LA first and then got her accounting master's degree at Sac State. But because
Nice.
she was in the state school system, anybody that, all of us as kids, we can get in at a pretty much discounted rate back when we were going to
Mhm.
school.
Lots
And
of perks. Yes.
my son benefited from that from me and my mom because I got
Hmm.
my 4-year degree from Sac State. So, like, those are little things that as you get older, you start to understand even just generational wealth. And
Yeah,
one of
that's the legacy. That's how legacy works at these other, universities or just in universities, period. Legacy.
that's how wealth is built, right? And that's like, and I got that like after I got done playing and I went into the mortgage industry, I noticed a trend with my East Coast, clients compared to my West Coast clients. Like my East Coast clients, everybody went to a specific school. Like I did a lot of loans in Pennsylvania, New Jersey. A lot of those people went to like the Atlantic type 10 schools or Brown, Columbia, Penn U, Penn State. Like a lot of these families and people that I was dealing with on a client base all had a lineage of kids, and for themselves, their parents, their grandparents were these people that had had all this educational background.
Yeah, I think that's something the East Coast and the Southeast has on the West Coast because we didn't really not we didn't really have that here. I feel like it's pushed a lot more. Like
Well,
even with,
just
the
history, right?
HBCUs,
I remember history though too. So history is our country is founded and started in on that side of the country. So
they're ahead. Yeah.
more
Yep.
solidified trees that have been, really rooted and fully grown. And so these families can continue to climb a specific ladder. And
Yeah.
however you look at success is how you look at success. I was always taught that success comes from being smart, being intelligent, being available, you know, being slow to speak, less quick to anger, all of these different like almost biblical things too that the education system does bring you. So for me having a father, and I'll say that very candidly, like my dad, my father was very reticent on making sure that the things I was learning in school were the same things I'm learning in the Bible, right? And how do they mesh together? So there was times where you would have these like kind of morality situations where you're like, I don't know if I'm supposed to study this, or I don't know if this is the right word to use or right phrase to use on this paper, so it just gives you in my opinion, having a good education background gives you a really good sense of,
Principles.
yeah, principles, just a foundation, right? And it's not for everybody, because I will say that, and I know
Yeah.
that.
Because
But
you don't even really remember everything. You said you took 4 years of Spanish. Do you remember all the
so like
Spanish that you learned or
our
the,
our senior grad trip was to Mexico.
oh, awesome.
So my trip got cut short because of baseball, but I was there for 4 days and literally forgot the word bathroom.
Baño, baño or
But
something.
I'm sitting at this restaurant, like trying to talk to the waiter in Spanish. We're just ordering, and I completely space on what bathroom is in Spanish. And it's like if you're not using it, you're gonna lose it, right? I've
Yeah.
heard that, probably heard that terminology before, and I think at the end of the day, like if you value something, then you're gonna put more effort into it. And so I feel for a lot of teachers because I have a lot of friends that have gone into teaching, and I have a lot of families in my organization that have teachers, as their parents, and I see kind of their demeanor when they walk in. Like I can tell when some of my moms that are teachers have had a really rough day, and are just kind of looking for solutions. And I've had parents in the past come up to me and it's like, you should teach more, and I've done the substitute teaching. My best friend's done it, it's crazy that when I look at just my circle of friends, there's myself, Daryl, Charles, Amy, all educators. Tish, they're all educators or all have an educational background that are doing something or have done something in education. So I think it's crazy that, when you really think about the people that you're surrounded by the most or the people that you entrust the most with, your free time are on the same level as you and have the same kind of moral code that you have when it comes to something that's so big and vital.
Yeah, like you guys are like-minded people. And I
Mhm.
mean, life is all about helping others and teaching others and sharing knowledge and imparting, information and experiences to others so that they are successful in this life, you know. And and whatever success looks like to people,
Can I ask you a question? Like, when did you figure out what you wanted to do? Like, was it educational? Like, did you have a teacher that kind of inspired you to be artsy and multimedia driven? Like, was it something?
not at all. My story is completely different than what
Mhm,
you tell me. That's why I enjoy hearing about your life and how, like I see why you're successful because of all the people and all the things that were poured into you. And I just think that's awesome that people are exposed to these things, but a lot of people, you have to go out there and get it yourself and find out yourself. I'm
yeah.
not getting emotional.
It's okay, you can, because it is an emotional thing because I feel like that not a lot of people have what I have, and I never take what I have for granted. I've never taken the things and the people that I have in my life for granted because I
Right.
there's a lot of people who don't have.
Yeah. Myself and a lot of people I know, we had to do it ourselves. We had to watch YouTube. We had to learn. You had to be willing and have the ability to go out there and find out everything on your own,
Mhm. Yeah.
So
So
it's
you figure out what you were gonna do.
I just kind of like I guess my father was an entrepreneur. So I think a lot of stuff that's in me, it's just in my DNA.
Mhm.
Like I've come from a working family and like my grandfather, he was a mechanic for the post office and retired off of that and was the lead of, the post office as a black man in like the 30s and 40s. So it's like I have a lot of people that were in my family that were go-getters
Mhm.
for themselves and for their family. Um, but I think I really just I don't know. I did a lot of like my parents didn't go to college,
Mhm.
so we kind of just navigated and floated through that whole experience. And like I think that one of our topics on this was school loans or getting school loans, and that's how I went to college. We didn't have the money to pay for college or didn't know how to stick with sports to because I know that would have got me a scholarship. Like I know all these things now because I went through it. Like basically just had to go through it. Like
Yeah,
everything that I'm doing, like photography, videography, I taught myself. I didn't go to school for any of this.
that's dope though, because again, that's just like the power of being a human being. Like our capability of being able to pick something up and run with it is just it's kind of surreal in a lot of ways, and it's like it's amazing in my opinion how God has instituted each person with a
Right.
gift, and
Yeah.
it just takes certain times or certain people to kind of get your gifts out. And I just believe in the system of school because I feel like if a kid really in a family, I would say, really puts their effort into it, your son or your daughter's ceiling becomes that much higher,
Yeah.
right? And
Absolutely.
they can end
It
up.
makes their life easier.
Yeah.
Like just and that's what, it's all about is just learning. And I've always said, everything you do isn't in vain. Everything has its purpose. And so just everything that I've gone through and learned from, and that's one thing too. I'm just a quick learner.
Mhm.
Um, and just having that willing and that ability to just want to learn and to just be better and to share it with others so they don't have to struggle. Because like I said earlier, like you really have to kind of be in certain social clubs to know what opportunities are out here.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, like that's what I'm doing this podcast for as well, is like just sharing everything that I've known, because like my family really worked our way up to where we're at. Very much self-made, and not with all the things of the system as far as education system, but I think it's so important to just share these opportunities, or just what you're doing, like sharing your knowledge and what people did with you, sharing knowledge with you on how to make it in this life. And like I said, success looks different to everyone. But I think if your goal is to be successful, get money, be well cultured, know how to figure out life, how to just keep moving and going up. Um, Education is very necessary.
For sure, for sure. And I think
So,
there's so many things that you get from education and just get from a higher educational standpoint. And when I say higher education, I always include high school, because there are people who don't even get to experience that, or who kind of, poo it off, and they just have
or
skated by,
get their GED later in life or something.
who have really taken a liking to it. And it's not, I don't want to say it's like, oh, it's me like thinking it's better than everything else, because that's not what it is. It's, I just know what it's done for me. I know what it's done for my family, and I know what it's done for my these and that. Sorry.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, like for your experience, like it just shows like people could take what you on paper and compare it to somebody else who didn't have all those opportunities. Or actually you could just look at their life and see that fruit in their life. And
Mhm.
maybe those things don't matter to some people, because I do know there are, people that are highly educated, but they might be a little not as compassionate. I won't say that about you. You're
Mhm.
very compassionate and you want to lift other people up. But there are people who have become extremely successful and don't help anybody else, you know?
And I think
So,
it's hard because, like, there's been times where I don't want to say felt guilty for having what I have, because it's not like I'm trying to throw it in anybody's face, but I do know I'm very blessed as a human being, as an individual in this world, to have those types of things. But then there's also the same people, like even in my own family, that have had these opportunities, have these things, and just haven't been able to capitalize, and or make them their thing. And so, like, there is good and bad to it,
yeah.
so
Yeah,
not
like
everybody.
yeah, like people will look down on others, but I don't know. I'm not really that's a whole nother show. I was like, we don't have to go
Yeah,
into that.
I think the biggest thing too that I wanted to make sure that I was articulating in this whole conversation is that I have a very big affinity for people who are teaching and coaching and those types of factors, and
We need them, and teachers should be paid way more.
yeah,
Teachers, coaches, like if you're investing your time in making our future better, like teachers should be paid more than these athletes. Like there was a topic that was going around, or a meme where what's her not Caitlyn Jenner,
yeah,
Caitlyn
absolutely.
Clark. Caitlyn
Okay.
Clark, they were talking about her salary for the next 4 years. And they were kind of complaining, it's like a whole thing, but she's getting basically paid 75,000 a year on average. And people were like upset that she should be making more, as the NBA and all this stuff. But teachers, people should be advocating for teachers just as much as they advocate for like
Yeah,
NBA
because I
players.
can
Like you're literally just
I
you're
can
just playing
guarantee
basketball.
every successful athlete, they've had a minimum of 2 to 3 teachers that changed their life and that helped them believe in what they were going to be. Because,
Yeah.
it's not an accident that you make it. I will always err on the side of that. Like, it's almost sometimes divine intervention that you will make it, as long as you have the right plan in place and then you're trying to execute that plan to the best of your ability, like every day, because it's an
Yeah.
everyday. And
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
talking to a boy a couple days ago about it, and I was like, that's what I love so much about the sport of baseball and just athletics in general is that as an athlete, as a coach, rent's due every day. If you look at it like that, rent's due every day. So how am I going to perform? How am I going to draw up these X's and O's and put the right people in positions to win? Because winning has to be, and winning sounds, it's not just what's in the win-loss column. Winning for me is like my biggest trophy is signing day for our players, or having players go to a JC and they're going to still play, or they get to the right fit where this 4-year decision ended up being a 40-year decision. And so like those are the real key
The
emphasis.
building blocks, yes, like the building blocks for success.
Yeah. So
Like
I've always looked at it in that capacity is that like I know I'm a teacher and I know I have almost a ministry in a lot of ways with what I'm doing as a
it
coach.
is a ministry. Say
Yeah.
that, speak that.
Yeah. Well, it is because again, we just held something yesterday, right? And
Mhm,
um because we have so many really great people in this very eclectic and socioeconomically diverse academy program that,
mhm,
I have a doctor, a professor at Sac State who has decided she's going to take it upon herself with a couple of other moms and parents and myself and my business partner and make sure we go through all the A through G requirements that we're going to go through. We held a workshop yesterday for that to help our 7th and 8th graders learn how to pick the right classes so that they can actually be on the fast track to go to school
mhm.
after high school. And then for our high school athletes, making sure that they are doing the right things and everything has been listed out of there's a really great website that a friend of mine, a coaching peer of mine, Ethan Gouvain has, and it's called keepplayingbaseball.org. And it's this entire website dedicated to managing your own recruitment and how to get into schools, how to be seen, what you need to be doing. It's a step-by-step process. He's got this tab, it's called Recruiting 101. And
Mhm.
that tab gives you what you have to do your freshman. It gives you a checklist, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. And you know how much emphasis and time that takes to actually to curate something like that. And how can you not support someone that is doing this for others, and he's
Yeah,
doing it in a nonprofit way and he's, asking for investors, asking for people to help so that he can continue to do the research and spend time away from his family to help other families, and
mhm.
that website alone has whew, minimum 50 players, minimum since 2019,
That's
since
great.
in
I
just
love
my
it.
in just my program alone. So that's 50 kids that have used his resource center in his hub and his knowledge mixed with my knowledge mixed with other people in our program, their high school coaches, their counselors, and all are on a united front to get this one particular player where he needs to go. And
What?
I personally had great counselors in high school. Darren Zanders, I mean, if I could give him a stipend check monthly for what he provided for me, I would. Like if I was rich beyond my means, I would not only retired my parents, but I would have helped him get whatever he needed because he knew
Yeah,
that, you know,
yeah, no, that will set you apart. And it'll save you time. Like that's just what it's all about. It saves you time,
for time
money.
time is money.
Exactly.
Money
And and
well,
you're
time
pretty much
is money,
guaranteed for success because you're surrounded by other successful people.
for
And
sure.
that's what it's all about as well, unfortunately. I mean, not it's not unfortunately, it's fortunately because if you're not surrounded by people like yourself or others that are out here doing it who've already been through it, it's not looking good.
It's not, and I think
It's
the
not looking good for you. I'm just gonna say
climate
that.
where we're at, I still feel like
It's
you know,
setbacks. It's
yeah, in order to have really what you want, you need something, and whether it's an apprenticeship, charter school, that there's several of those types of things opening up right now, um, private school, public school, um, I just feel like everybody can do their part, but we have to raise more awareness on how can we help these individuals that are teaching the necessary fundamentals to be a successful adult.
Yeah,
And
like isn't that what we're here for? I
yeah,
mean, what else are we here for? I don't see like we're not here just to acquire material things and I think it's here to just me personally, I feel like we're here to help others.
yeah, I
But
agree.
some people don't have those goals.
Hmm.
So, but
Yeah,
hey, but if you're here watching this podcast, you have those goals and
yeah.
we're gonna help everyone as much as we can with
Wicked.
your experience, my experience, and however wherever this podcast goes in the future.
I
You
think
know,
in just hindsight, just being able to have a weekly conversation with somebody who I value in this life, and be able to share what I've gone through, and then you be also being able to share and collaborative. Like, and again, I told you this before we even started, the whole podcast in this season. I really don't think we're gonna have those blow ups or blowouts to where we're not amicable with each other and not being able to really see each other's viewpoints because we're really kind of cut from a similar cloth. I think that your journey is just as equally important as my journey, and I don't ever want to gauge them. I don't ever want to put them to the test or, you know, have
yeah,
this non-mutual battle like some of this other stuff that we deal with. And because I don't operate off of ego or jealousy, so it's like I'm all for it. Like, if I have friends that are going back to school now, and it's like that was hard for me because like my college experience overall wasn't just your natural college experience. I went away to school to a historical Black college at Southern University in Baton
oh
Rouge, Louisiana.
really? You did? I didn't know that.
But I came home after a half semester, because I
Oh,
got
okay.
then girlfriend pregnant. So like
Mm,
a lot of different things, but also leading up to that, I had committed to a school that I had to decommit from and then go to this school sight unseen, never been to the South. Like there's all these different stories that I have of I wish I would have been able to have some of the things that I really give my players now, like, hey, go see the school, go meet the coach, go see the environment, go stay there for a weekend and see how campus life is or on a weekday, and go show
yeah,
them those things. And I feel like a lot of our school system stuff, they do a good job of that. Like TJ shadowed Sac State, UOP, JC's before his senior year even hit. He had been on these campuses. But
yeah,
sport also provided that, him being an athlete provided that because we went to team camps that were overnight things or week long things. I mean, we spent a whole entire 6 days at UC San Diego in the dorms with my
yeah,
team.
yeah. Like
So
if you don't get it educate, scholarly, scholastically, then I say play a sport. Play a
mhm,
sport. There's so many benefits in playing a sport in school. It'll take you so far. It'll pay for college or help pay for college,
it
you know?
can. There's so many different
I
sports.
just,
Hell, they have pickleball teams, bowling teams, they have all
yeah,
stuff. Like
volleyball.
e-gaming now provides scholarships and name, image, and likeness money, and so
Yeah, there's
you know,
lots of funding too, I notice
yeah,
now.
there
Different
is.
organizations. You just have to actually go out there, seek it out, write the letters. You might have to put in a little work, but just, however they do it now, whatever the application process is.
My kid wrote like 6 different essays, and it's been in upwards of almost 18,000, going to him
See?
a year.
Yeah.
So
See? It
on
takes
top of
effort.
education or scholarship is academic scholarship, being a dean's list guy the last 4 semesters or whatnot. Like it's those are all the important things that as a parent I'm really happy, right? I'm proud because like both boys listened, and they bought in. And it's hard because it's hard to get buy-in from something you may not know. So if that's more to the people that don't have a background of having mentors or having support.
Mhm.
um but it was kind of like I always call it. I think I said on our first show that we are involved in a social caste system per se, right?
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
who your family is or what they've done is kind of what you're going to do, unless you're just that wild child. And those are very one-off type child situations. Um, I think there's a lot of different pieces that come with it, but like I said it last night at practice. I said I had such a fear of my coaches and my family, my dad especially, right, of disappointment or letting them down, that always kind of kept me on the straight and narrow,
Mhm.
so I always was trying to listen to what my coach was saying so I could do what he was saying to do, because I was
Mhm.
somewhat fearful of what could happen if I didn't do it, so I don't ever want to get to that point. And I think there's a little bit more boldness now in today's world because kids are able to express themselves in a whole different manner than what we were, like we were told before we got into the store, don't ask for anything. If you did, you're getting whooped. Now it's
Right.
I see kids all the time, and it's like half the cart is their stuff, it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's just a level of difference, right? That's never really been, but um you either adapt or die, and
Yeah, because I'm hearing a lot of kids don't want to go the secondary route. They do want to go the entrepreneur route. And I'm telling people right now, it's difficult. The entrepreneur route, I mean, life in itself will hold you back or set you back, but you have to work twice as hard. You're working all day long, pretty much. And I definitely suggest, as long as you don't have to grow up and be an adult, push that off as far as possible and go to school. Go to
heck,
school. Go to school, start there, and seek out people that do believe in you. Be around people who believe in you. Seek out these counselors, seek out scholarships,
mhm.
seek out programs. Whatever you're looking for, there's a program for
Free
it, or
sorority,
there's a,
those
you
types of
know,
those social networking type deals is very imperative as well, because I have a lot of buddies that I went to school with at the HBCU and out here that are part of lifelong fraternities and
yeah, the sorority life, man, that's lifelong connections,
yeah,
lifelong for sure.
just hopefully people are able to take a little bit from that and tap in on it, and do me a favor, give your favorite educator a hug or a high five when
Oh,
you see 'em, and, because those
yeah.
are things that even as a coach, I kind of those are the things that uplift me, is
Mhm.
knowing that I may have inspired a mom that was just so fed up with the day that day, or just fed up with her job, or fed up with staying at home, or the dad that is doing it all and he's got three kids at three different locations. And so when people tell me thank you for what you do, or
Mhm.
and that was a touching, kind
Whew.
of speech and things of that nature, that just gives you so much more oomph,
To
right?
keep going. Yeah. And just being acknowledged, just being appreciated, just receiving that kindness, it keeps you going. There's
Exactly.
no other thing, no other way to say it. I know you wanted to touch on loan forgiveness. Was there anything you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, I'll keep
Like,
it short. I feel like I err on the side of, like I said, I'm more neutral, kind of Switzerland when it comes to politics and things like that. I just feel like getting your secondary education shouldn't put you in a financial disposition where you're struggling the rest of your life. Like that's
exactly.
part about all of that, right? And so,
Yeah.
um,
Because it's also real quick, it's terrible that we're 18, 19 years old and you're getting your opportunity to get your first credit card, or it's this is really your first opportunity to go into crazy debt through
mhm,
school. And school is too expensive. Like the tuition has gone up. But it's just, I don't know. I think they have to reform the whole education system as
mhm.
far as how we're paying for school,
Yeah, and that's
you know?
basically what I'm saying is like I don't have a problem with it personally. I felt like if that's the administration's call, that's the administration's call. If it's not their call, then it's not their call. But yeah, I do
But it's
feel that.
gonna help people. It'll definitely help people not have to pay what $600 a month or whatever for trying to get a law degree that they're not even trying to take their bar or become a lawyer.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's out of whack, like a lot of different systems in America. But if you are up for loan forgiveness, make sure you look into it right now because April 30th, I think, is the deadline to where you can transfer all your consolidate your debt um, to federal loans. So look into that by April 30th, or actually do it now because what's today? April. Yeah. If you want to be in the loan program that Biden is offering, there is a deadline, April 30th, 2024.
Get on
I
it.
know, exactly. Like, get on it. So we'll see. We'll see what they do with that.
Well, I had
I
a
hope
blast.
it works out for people.
I do too. I'm praying for them all.
Right, exactly. Well, cool. We'll let you guys go.
Yeah, that was
Thank
fun.
you for this great conversation.
Anytime.
And
Thank you, Stace. Appreciate you.
we'll talk later, everyone.
All right.